I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Congratulations, by the way. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. Real quick, man, we've got so much to get to. But I will say, we have, we did a segment yesterday on the Pope County casinos. We're talking with Larry Walker. We actually talked to him last week. We were reading a comment on YouTube where somebody was criticizing the program, and that's fine. You want to criticize us, or you think the casinos are a good thing. You want them in Pope County. Okay, all right. I think the people there still don't want it. That's what I think. And I mean, if you put it to a vote, it would be interesting to see what actually the outcome of that vote would be. Fact of the matter is, the rest of the state of Arkansas voted to put this and change a community that none of us have to live in, and it's very frustrating. Anyway, the telephone number 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you want to contribute to the conversation. That's 870-275-9799. Boy, oh boy, was yesterday interesting. It was really was everything I hoped for. Joe, you remember? I mean, we were kind of really anticipating the release of the transcript of President Trump and the Ukrainian leader and what the Democrats have done. We were going over yesterday what Congressman Rick Crawford and Steve Womack and Bruce Westerman and French Hill and Senator Tom Cotton and Senator John Bozeman, what they had to say in response to the impeachment inquiry. Now you have some murmurings that Democrats are, behind closed doors. They have some regret that Pelosi went ahead with this. Now that we know what we know. Now they're trying to move the goalposts. Now that the transcript was released and it's a big nothing burger, that combined with the fact that the media is lying again, they're doubling down on their lies. I mean, they told us there was going to be a quid pro quo. There wasn't a quid pro quo. They told us that Joe Biden was going to be mentioned 8 times. Joe Biden wasn't. And now the mainstream media, in order to fit their narrative that Trump asked the President Zelensky for a favor, that favor was to investigate why the Democrat Party was hacked. And CrowdStrike and the server, CrowdStrike was the company that the Democrat Party hired to figure out why they were hacked. And that was the favor. But the mainstream media, they are omitting 540 words of the transcript and claiming that, no, the favor that President Trump asked for was Joe Biden. By the way, President Trump didn't even mention Rudy Giuliani until President Zelensky mentioned Rudy Giuliani. And really, if you want to know what this whole thing was about, this whole thing is about the fact that the Ukraine elected a guy who is not loyal to the globalist elite and the Democrat Party. That's why the Democrats pressured the president of Ukraine. They wrote a letter. They even went over there. Or they had a meeting with him. I don't know where that meeting was. I'm assuming it was either in the Ukraine or at a neutral location. Anyway, let's kind of start. By the way, President Trump, let's start at the top, Joe. First tab. President Trump said this last week. The mainstream media, the press, and the Democrats should have listened. Remember when he said this?
It was actually a beautiful conversation. And this is no different than, the press has had a very bad week with Justice Kavanaugh and all of those ridiculous charges and all of the mistakes made at the New York Times and other places. You've had a very bad week, and this will be better than all of them. This is another one. So keep playing it up, because you're going to look really bad when it falls. You know, I guess I'm about 22-0, and I'll keep it that way. I don't want to talk about any conversation other than to say.
Okay, so then we have the Wall Street Journal. You know, the Wall Street Journal, you know, had some reporting. They were claiming that this could have been a big deal earlier in the week. Kimberly Strassel, though, from the Wall Street Journal, having read Donald Trump's or the Department of Justice Trump Ukraine release, here's the real story. This is another internal attempt to take out a president on the basis of another non-smoking gun. As to the call transcript itself, Trump's actual favor is that the Ukraine look backward to what happened in the 2016 election. This is a legitimate ask, since election meddling looks to have come from both Russia and Ukraine. Indeed, this is a big enough issue that we find out this morning that the U.S. Attorney John Durham is looking at what role the Ukraine played in the FBI investigation. It is actually Zelensky who brings up Rudy Giuliani, saying they can't wait to meet him. And it is Zelensky who references that investigation, as he goes on to promise that all investigations will be done openly and candidly. Trump says good and expresses worries that a good prosecutor was shut down, mentions Biden's son, and that Biden bragged he stopped the prosecution, ends that bit with, it sounds like trouble to me. Trump's several references to Giuliani are mostly to say what a great guy he is. He says he'll have Giuliani and AG Barr call. He asks Zelensky to speak or work with both. And never mind, because DOJ in a statement says the president has not spoken to the AG about investigating Biden. Meanwhile, the IG back in August referred this to DOJ's potential violation of campaign finance law based on a whistleblower complaint. The criminal division evaluated it and determined no violation. Quote, all relevant components of the department agreed with this legal conclusion. Whistleblower? Look at this nugget referenced by the OLC opinion. The IG's review found some indication of an arguable political bias on the part of the complainant in favor of a rival of a political candidate. And then we've got media got this so wrong, the Democrats look all the more partisan and radical to have moved forward with impeachment. Congressman Mark Meadows, go to the next one, the full Ukraine call transcript shows real Donald Trump asking Ukraine's president for a favor helping to investigate the 2016 election. But that doesn't stop CNN. Look at what CNN, you have to probably refresh that maybe. This is what they're saying now. Even on Fox News, Shepard Smith, this is what they're saying. Take a listen.
Up dirt on Biden and his son, Hunter, who sat on the board of a Ukrainian energy company while his dad was vice president. A just-released transcript of a phone call shows President Trump asking Ukrainian President Zelensky to investigate his political rival, former Vice President Joe Biden. And in this call, the president repeatedly stresses how much the U.S. does for Ukraine. And then he says, quote, I would like
for you to do us a favor. And then listen, and they skip 500 words in their reporting. I would like for you to do us a favor, and then they just
quote,
edit down.
I would like you to do us a favor. The president asks Zelensky to dig up dirt on Biden and his son, Hunter, who sat on the board of a Ukrainian energy company while his dad...
They are totally admitting what the transcript says. The favor was about the 2016 election, has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Here's Molly Hemingway. This is key. The reported scandal based on anonymous sources turned out to be not true. These false claims led to real harm and impeachment fury. The Washington Post has a track record of publishing false information on Trump. I mean, look at this. This is from Trump War Room on Twitter. On September 18th, the Washington Post used two anonymous sources to report that Trump's interaction with the foreign leader included a promise. The transcript of the interaction is now public. It shows there was no promise. I mean, this is time and time again. It's the same thing, and it really validates what we've been saying with the media. Whatever they tell you, you can believe the 180-degree opposite, and you're likely going to be right. The president's son, Eric Trump, tweeting this. This is actually a hilarious gif here. The Democrat Party is a train going over a bridge and the bridge collapses. I mean, that does appear. But the media is, man, the media is now so much more than just the public communications arm for the Democrat Party. They are now, and the president is now calling them corrupt, by the way, not just fake news, but corrupt. I think there are people in the media that have a lot to lose here too, and it's I think it's far more than just their their dreams of Marxism that looked really good on their universities when their professor was writing it up on the chalkboard. Here is President Donald Trump. He retweeted this yesterday from Fox News. John Roberts, go ahead.
Is that the big thing that everybody was talking about was that there was a quid pro quo. That was the president withholding some $391 million in military and other aid to the Ukraine on the with the condition that Zelensky had to open an investigation into Biden. That language or even that suggestion exists nowhere in this document. Point of this transcript is that
so that's
big
exactly
thing
right.
That everybody was talking
that's
about.
That's another thing. Not only was there
a
supposed to be a promise, there was also supposed to be, a quid pro quo. No quid pro quo. All right. But the media is trying to claim there was a quid pro quo with Javelin missiles. And the biggest, I think the most effective thing to debunk this is Team Trump put out a video specifically arguing what is in what is actually in the transcript versus what's not in the transcript. And so Kayleigh McKinney here, just watch this. I want you to watch this video because it actually is very good, but it also shows you how the media is continuing to lie to the people. Listen.
Tonight, the media is lying to you, and we have evidence. Today, as you've all heard, President Trump released a transcript of his call with the Ukrainian president. It clearly exposed the media. The media told us there was an offer of quid pro quo. False. The media told us that the president leveraged foreign aid. False. And the media told us that Joe Biden was mentioned 8 times by President Trump. False again. Well, tonight, even though the fake news media has been exposed, they are continuing to lie to the American people. What we are about to show you is a montage of the media making a false claim. Here's what they say. They say that the Ukrainian president mentioned the sale of Javelin missiles, and then President Trump asked for the favor of looking into Joe Biden in response. One problem, it's not true. The favor was looking into the hacking of the Democratic National Committee. That's right, looking into why the Democrats were hacked, a clear matter of public interest. Watch the clips.
The Ukrainian president mentions buying missiles from the United States. And President Trump tells the Ukrainian president, I would like you to do us a favor.
What a blatant lie. What a
President
blatant
Trump
lie.
urges the Ukrainian president to work with his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and Attorney General William Barr to look into Joe Biden and his son's business dealings in Ukraine.
And then he says, quote, I would like you to do us a favor. The president asks Zelensky to dig up dirt on Biden and his son, Hunter, who sat on the board of a Ukrainian energy company while his dad was vice president.
He said, will you do me a favor and investigate Vice President Biden's son? Will you do me a favor and get involved in the 2020 election? Vice President Biden is my chief political opponent.
One problem. None of what you just watched is true. Here is the transcript. Here are the facts. Read it with me. As you can see, the Ukrainian president says, quote, we are almost ready to buy more javelins from the United States, to which the president responds, I would like you to do us a favor. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with the Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike has nothing to do with Joe Biden. In fact, CrowdStrike is the name of the cybersecurity firm that investigated the hacking of the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 election. In other words, the media selectively deleted 500 plus words from a transcript and suggested that after the mention of the sale of javelins, President Trump asked for the favor of looking into Joe Biden, when in fact the favor was getting to the bottom of why the Democrats
All right, so
were
there you
hacked
have
in
it. That's very good, and the reason this is going out is it's a well-produced video. They're having to go beyond the media. They're having to get this to the people because the media, they are the enemy of the fake news media is the enemy of the American people. I mean, why would you? Why? What do you have to lose? I mean, why? I get it. This goes beyond even personal hatred of the president. I just personally hate the guy. This goes beyond that. This is, I mean, you guys are just more concerned. Maybe they're more concerned about protecting their image because they know what they just did. They know once again they lay a net for the president and they fall into their own traps. I mean, it's like it's something that man can't even coordinate. I mean, this is happening time and time and time again. But something is really weird. What does Shepard Smith have to lose by just being honest with the audience, saying that the quid pro quo? I mean, there was no quid pro quo, and now you're saying no. He mentioned Javelin missiles. The president didn't mention Javelin missiles. Zelensky mentioned them, and the favor had nothing to do with Joe Biden. It's just a complete lie. By the way, did you see this clip of Elizabeth Warren? Go to Tim Murtaugh. Is he a congressman? No, he's the director of communications for Donald Trump. But he retweeted this from Nicole Smanga or Jenga. Listen to this. This is pretty funny to me.
I don't know. I mean, I have to go back and.
Anyway, sorry, it's not. So Elizabeth Warren was asked this question.
Say whether or not under a Warren administration would your vice president's child be allowed to serve on a board of a foreign company?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I have to go back and look at the details on the plan.
Do you think there could be a problem with that?
I have to go back and look.
Well, so Elizabeth Warren there is clearly she's flustered. Elizabeth Warren is. Because she's like, you're talking about Joe Biden, but you're actually doing it by asking a general question. So no, we wouldn't allow a child of a vice president. But I don't know. I have to go look at, I have to go back and look at my ethics policy. I got to go back and look at that. We're going to break now for 1 minute. We're going to be back here in just a moment, and then let's get to. We got some Arkansas news to get to also later in this hour. Insurance rates are going up. We've got, by the way, on the show today, we're going to be talking, excited to talk to Carmen Nelson coming up at the top of the hour. She's with the Animal League of Washington County. Then we've got Dr. Michael Pacco at 7:30 today. We're going to go over some of the numbers that were released last Friday and some numbers that were released on Tuesday. We're talking about Arkansas's economy and the United States economy. We'll be back here in just a moment. His name, I think this is his real name, is Joe Sixpack. He's the author of a book called Socialism Sucks Your Money from Your Pocket. Well, Socialism Sucks, ... your money from your pocket. Hey, Joe, how's it going, sir?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So just tell me a little bit about this book. Why'd you want to write it, and why does socialism suck?
Man, I could go on for days on that topic. Where it came from was I was out of country for about 10 years, and I moved back in 2010, and I was flabbergasted at how much socialism had encroached on society in general, and I was at the same time absolutely gobsmacked at how poor a job the Republicans/conservatives are at appealing to youth, whereas the socialist Democrats are very adept at.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, telephone number 870-275-9799. Let's get to this. President Trump in the midst of the firestorm yesterday. I don't know about you guys. I could not put down my phone yesterday. I was constantly looking at this. Here's the press conference between the president of Ukraine, the president of the United States. It eventually got to, not this one. Go to the next one. I'm sorry, Joe. Right there. Go ahead and hit play right where we're at. Trump is asked about CrowdStrike. He's actually, no one really wants to talk about CrowdStrike, but that's the real story here. The real story is there's a new faction in charge of Ukraine that's not aligned to the globalist tendencies of the Democrat Party. Listen. It's something, what's up? Is it, we don't have it? Okay. Well, we have to get back to where it was, I guess. It was much further down. No.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're with the president.
Right there, yes, sir. He was asked about Hillary Clinton's, he brought up Hillary Clinton's email.
Deleted? Yes. Yeah, I think they could very well. Boy, that was a nice question. I like that question. Because frankly, I think that one of the great crimes committed is Hillary Clinton deleting 33,000 emails after Congress sends her a subpoena. Think of that. You can't even do that in a civil case. You can't get rid of evidence like that. She deleted 33,000 emails after, not before, after receiving the subpoena from the U.S. Congress. I mean, I've never heard. Now, she's done far worse than that, although I don't know how much worse it can be. But there were many other things she did that were wrong. But that's so obvious. She gets the subpoena from the United States.
So the question was, do you think the Ukraine has Hillary Clinton's 30,000 emails? And he said, ooh, I like that question. That's what this is about. You understand? That right there is why the Democrats wrote a letter to Ukraine. It's why the Democrats met with the president. Matter of fact, he mentions that in this, there's a Fox News article, Trump turns table on Biden amid impeachment push, claims Dems threatened Ukraine. That's one of the things he said, was that the Democrats actually threatened Ukraine. The Democrats have done what they're accusing me of doing. In 4 short years, Ukraine has made significant... Listen to this. This is what the Democrat senators wrote. We covered that yesterday, actually. And even the Washington Post, Mark Thiessen, is saying that this does look like a double standard. Quote, Senator Chris Murphy literally... This is the president. Senator Chris Murphy literally threatened the president of Ukraine that if he doesn't do things right, they won't have Democrat support in Congress. I told Zelensky that he should not insert himself or his government into American politics. I cautioned him that complying with the demands of the president's campaign representatives to investigate a political rival. Apparently, the Democrats have known about all of this since July, and they have just been figuring out how to deal with it. Go to the next cut, Joe. Here is the president. In a different meeting. Of course, he's at the United Nations during all of this, and he's having to deal with this scandal. Listen.
There's no pressure whatsoever, and if you take a look at the Democrats, they went down to see the president of Ukraine, and they asked him for all sorts of things, and don't go with the Republicans and stay with us, and like it's a political war. They shouldn't have done that. That should be an impeachable event, I guess, based on what you're saying. The Democrats just came out. They went down there, a group of people, some of whom I was dealing with on the gun issue, and they went down, put tremendous pressure on Ukraine. The president himself just came out with a statement saying there was absolutely no pressure put on him, and there wasn't. What I do want to see is I want to see other countries helping Ukraine also, not just us. As usual, the United States helps and nobody else is there. So I want to see other countries help. Just so you understand, it's the single greatest witch hunt in American history, probably in history, but in American history. It's a disgraceful thing. The letter was a great letter, meaning the letter revealing the call. That was done at the insistence of myself and other people that read it. It was a friendly letter. There was no pressure. The way you had that built up, that call, it was going to be the call from hell. It turned out to be a nothing call other than A lot of people said, I never knew you could be so nice.
Stop. President Donald Trump, everybody. Kind of making fun of himself there. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Dangling the freebies in front of the young people and luring them in that fashion. And it was just really frustration. And, it's my own, I guess, people's little attempt to kind of be a voice in the wind.
Yeah.
Appealing to not so much conservatism as common sense. Think for yourself kind of thing. I'm seeing very little of that with young people. The schools don't teach critical thinking anymore. They simply tell kids what to think, and it's not going to wind up well.
So I'm curious, you said you came back to the country. You were living overseas. You came back to the country in 2010. When did you leave the country?
2000.
Okay. All right. So you were gone for 10 years. All right. Now, I got to imagine that was kind of like some whiplash there, because the country was completely different back in the year 2000 versus 2010. I mean, you had September 11th in 2001, and then 7 years later, America elects a guy by the name of Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, God. Don't even get me started.
I know, but my point is everyone wants to talk about how racist and bigoted our country is. Man, we had guys that flew planes into buildings from Saudi Arabia who were Islamic terrorists, and 7 years after, if you'd have told somebody on September 12th, 2001, hey, in 7 years we're going to elect a guy president named Barack Hussein, they'd have said, no way. And yet, America did. But so that must have been a giant whiplash for you to leave in 2000 and to come back in 2010 and be like, what happened to my country?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I was gobsmacked. But, that's the thing with this country. We become such an apologetic, hell, we had it under Obama. He went and apologized to the entire world and bowed in front of Saudi leaders. And, just absolutely mind-boggling. If you told me this stuff 20 years ago, I would have said you're all on crack. There's no way this is possible. And yet, this is what we do. But, look at, as you just mentioned, racism. Okay. We are the country that eliminated slavery in about 150 years. Why don't we have we're the guys who abolished slavery day instead of everybody, beating themselves over their head about, oh, we're racist. I mean, slavery was the norm in the world for the entire history. And yet, we're the country that eliminated 150 years, but we don't celebrate that fact. Instead, we beat ourselves up and say, oh, we used to have slaves.
That's
it's insane. It's sheer insanity.
Yeah, and on to your point, the left really never talks about the soldiers who were willing to die, in that what's sometimes called the War of Northern Aggression. But you had all of those northern all those northern soldiers. You would think that people were
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So we're broadcasting up at YouTube.com. You can go to Conduit News, search for Conduit News at YouTube, and subscribe. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get the smaller interviews and the clips, and you get notifications when we go live and things like that. So you can watch us on YouTube. We would really appreciate that. We're also up at Facebook.com/Conduit News as well. So I know all of you are frustrated. I'm reading the comments here on Facebook. I totally get it. It is really, a lot of people think. Here's the thing. From what I can tell, we have people who are subscribing to just completely different realities at this point. And it's certainly furthering to divide the country. But the media refusing, and this goes across really all issues, but the media refusing to report the actual facts that you derive from just, in this case, reading a transcript. They are contributing to the further division of this country, because we all know, right? You guys all know. And it's kind of sad when you meet somebody who's only watching CNN. you know? It's sad. It's sad when you meet somebody who's only listening to liberal outlets and has literally no idea of the additional information that conservatives possess and conservatives have. And it's frustrating. And then, of course, you get those people who are rhinos, and we know we've got rhinos in our own state here in Arkansas in power. But you get people who are rhinos and who are, and Mitt Romney is now a stereotypical rhino in terms of, like a caricature of one. It's not even, the stuff he said, oh, the transcript is troubling and all this other nonsense. It's sad, And then you get these people who are kind of in the vein of Mitt Romney that are like, I just don't like how the president tweets or da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I just think it's because a lot of people who are like that, I think it's because they have liberal friends who hate the president and they're ashamed that they support the policies, but they feel like they have to apologize because they want the approval of their mainstream friends. And then I think you've got people who are really they have gone through life, their entire life, thinking that American government in and of itself is decent and good, and they think this. And now the media is telling them that America is run by a guy who's not decent and good and orange man bad. And what has really been exposed, I think, is an idol, and how a lot of people didn't realize how much security you get from thinking and believing that once you get into government is good and government is and people have put a lot of faith in men and the institutions of men. And now that you have the media telling you those institutions aren't what they used to be, you have average people that didn't care at all about the corruption of Barack Obama, and now all of a sudden they're engaged in politics and they think they know what's going on. And it is that is the most frustrating thing to me, is people who now all of a sudden have these opinions that are not based in truth, but they also are actually dealing with a lot of insecurities that they don't even realize they had. And the insecurity is you had all this faith in the government, and you didn't even realize it. You didn't even realize that some people, slept better at night knowing that, everything is, we've got people in government and it's a good and decent government. It hasn't been that way for a long time. Any of your problems that you have with President Trump publicly is a way much of these people are behind closed doors and have been for decades. I'm sorry to rant on this. It's just frustrated. And, I've got a text here. It's a good point in terms of Arkansas and, looking at the way the media behaves here. And I will tell you this, if you want to tie the way the media treats the president to the way the media, let's say, treats the state media treats, let's say, Governor Hutchinson, there's no comparison. It's the complete opposite, right? It's very weird, actually. I've talked about this anomaly before, by the way, how you have a situation where the national media, as evidence of what we've just seen in the last 24 hours, cannot say a good thing about Trump, even if he's vindicated and they've got egg all over their face, right? But the media here in Arkansas seems to bend over backwards to give Governor Asa Hutchinson very positive headlines. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette's most liberal, progressive, opinionated guy has written John Brummett, article after article after article praising Governor Asa Hutchinson. And sometimes he has to get a veiled criticism in there. But, I just find that absolutely conspicuous and incredible to me. It's been going on now for years. It's been going on since 2014. And so, anyway, it just it is what it is. Who I also feel sorry for, though, as I said the last couple of weeks, or the last couple of days, and Max Brantley of the Arkansas Times, he's really got to be upset now, because he's actually been lamenting the fact that the media has taken some of Trump's bait and has talked about Joe Biden. But of course, what do they say? That Joe Biden, there's no evidence to support, and then yet there's video evidence. Man, it's so funny. It's just so frustrating. Well, speaking of Arkansas, I see, is this Dr. This is Dr. Packo right here. He's on the front page, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Fewer Arkansans giving at least 30% to landlords than a 2010 data show. This is from today over at the Gazette. Dr. Packo, sat down with him yesterday, and we recorded a segment. We're going to play that coming up at 7:33 about Arkansas's economy and the United States economy. There are new numbers that have come in. This is a story about half of Arkansas renters spend about 30% or more of their income on rent. That means nearly half of Arkansas renters, 45.8%, are burdened by the expense of renting their homes, according to the Census Bureau standards. Let's see here. But the home buying market and the rental market are different. Let's keep going here. And in Arkansas, according to the latest U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the cost of living is 13.5% below the national average. That's a good thing. There's some people locally that think that's a bad thing because it attracts low-paying factory jobs. What an elitist way to think. The cost of living is 13.5% below the national average, said Michael Packo, chief economist and state economic forecaster at the Arkansas Economic Development Institute at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Incomes are 21% below the national average. Those figures have been fairly stable over time, and they point to Arkansas's continuing position as a low-income state. Quote, so you might end up finding that a high percentage of our residents are above that somewhat arbitrary threshold of 30%. The fact of the matter is, we can say that Arkansas is a low-income state, right? And I think those low-income people don't want to pay more in taxes. And yet we have a situation where Arkansans are facing a $70 million net tax increase because of the Arkansas General Assembly. We have a situation where we have new revenue. People are now paying more money when they buy something on the internet. People are now paying more for their cell phones because of the Arkansas General Assembly. People are now about to pay more at the pump coming up October the 1st, 3 cents higher at the pump. And it's really frustrating when you think about it. And I honestly didn't even know this mentality existed locally, but I would refer you, and I know I've talked a lot about this, but when the Jonesboro when the Jonesboro full cent sales tax increase failed, okay, some of the fallout from that, you read there's an editorial in the Jonesboro Sun, and it said it was lamenting the fact that it failed. It was the editor, Chris Wessel. And I've talked to Chris before. Chris is a nice guy, but his argument really was surprising to me towards the end when he said, and this kind of goes into this this idea that we're a low-income state. What he said in his piece was that because the tax failed, Jonesboro will limp on, and maybe we'll get a bike path here, maybe we'll get a walking path there, but we'll continue to be, how did he say it? A place where we have, low cost of living. And he said, and that's all well and good if you're looking at your light bill. But it's not well and good, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is pretty close. It's not well and good if you care about your children and your grandchildren's future. And I guess that's tied to public safety as well as, the quality of life tax that they were trying to pass. But then he went on to say, we need more progressive companies. In the name of progress, if you have progressive companies, they're going to pay higher wages. And Jonesboro has a lot of factory jobs here that pay lower wages. And I just really thought that was a very elitist way to lament a tax increase not passing. And it was almost as if to me, and now I am speculating, but it was almost as if to me, if we had more progressive companies that paid people higher wages, then those workers, would be more amenable to voting to tax themselves more. But those factory jobs that don't pay as high wages as we would like, those people, they went out and they voted your tax down. At least that's kind of what I felt. And I'm just like, man, come on, guys. If you want progressive companies, whatever that means, then you have to have lower taxes, lower regulations. You have to incentivize small business. By the way, that's what Dr. Packow and I talk about coming up at 7:30. We talk about that. How it's the small business that you have to worry about. It's the small business where your incentives should be, because you got to focus on that. That is the best way to actually see economic growth and grow jobs, grow your workforce, is your small businesses. Because if you start a small business, most of the time you're going to stick right here in Arkansas. You're not going to move away. Anyway, I mean, I think the fact that for example, and these are just statistics, and you can, yeah, sure, I'm sure you can take statistics and formulate your argument the way you want to, but according to USA Today, Arkansas is the 17th worst place to live in the United States when it comes to taxes, okay? When it comes to taxes, we are basically the 17th highest tax state overall in the country, and this is according to USA Today. Now, that essentially means that Arkansas, at least in the rankings, is like an average blue state. No, we're not like Oklahoma or Tennessee or Texas or Alabama or Georgia. None of those reds. We're basically we're just kind of an average, run-of-the-mill blue state based on the way it is taxed. Now, when it comes to income, we're 44th in the nation with income. Now, so if we are one of the higher tax states in the country, but we're 44th when it comes to average income, I would contend that those two numbers are directly linked. Some might say that they're indirectly linked, but I'm just telling you, we're giving too much money to the government, folks. I mean, that's my conclusion. Right now, we're giving too much money to, we got to have a government, we got to have something, but there is something going on. And we know that Arkansas spends almost $8,000 per person, per capita. That's what it takes, $8,000 per person to run our government, where the states around us do it for $5,000 a person. I mean, so this is why you have difficulty getting local tax. If I was going to vote for a tax increase, of course it would be one local, because you can theoretically monitor it better and where the money actually goes. But I mean, so I would encourage some of you guys, I mean, if you want this for your local community or that for local community, then you need to fight against the state government raising your taxes, because people have had it. People have had it. And the fact is, yes, Arkansas is a poor state when it comes to average income. And the government we're one of the highest tax places too. I mean, what is this? What are we, in Nottingham? I don't know if you guys have ever seen the cartoon version of Robin Hood, but I've seen it a lot lately as being the father of a 2-year-old, And that one scene where the sheriff sheriff of Nottingham, comes into the church, and you got the mice in the church, and they're saving their last shekel or penny or whatever, and they put it in the box, and then the sheriff comes in and takes it, and then Friar Tuck loses it, and that's when Friar Tuck gets arrested. Anyway, it just is. I don't think the average person specifically, and that's the other thing, when you have people that lobby for a tax who are well off and who are not in that, average income $40,000-$45,000 range a year, that's another thing. I think some people are just numb to actually how much of your money is going to the government out of every dollar. Especially, we're not even talking about the federal government. It's well over 50%. Not to mention the gas, the gas tax that you have state, the federal excise tax on tires when you buy them, the state tax on tires when you take your tire. I mean, you're taxed everywhere. And so, anyway, I think the reason Arkansas is a poor state is because we don't emphasize. Now we have people moving towards that direction of lower taxes and lower regulations, but when you cut taxes here, but you raise them more over here than you cut them, that's a net tax increase. Again, more money coming out of the pockets of the people, and it's very frustrating. Now, speaking of more money, we have the state of Arkansas's insurance department. Alan Kerr, the commissioner, Alan Kerr, has approved an increase, a rate increase of 2%. So there's a way the insurance companies, they want to increase your premiums. They ask the government, and the government always says yes. Now the reason for that, can we show this article? This is from the Gazette this morning, Joe. Insurance Commissioner Alan Kerr has approved rate increase, averaging just over 2% for the plans that will be sold in Arkansas next year. You're looking at an average increase of 2.9% for Blue Cross Blue Shield. That covers more than 166,000 people. That's like the main outfit in town. If you got a Centene plan, that's 1.9% increase. And then, of course, there was a waiting period. You approved it last week, but then you got to give the federal government 5 days to oppose you, and they didn't. Most people covered by the plans are low-income Arkansans whose premiums are paid with federal and state Medicaid funds under the Arkansas Works program. They claim that the number is 205,000 Arkansans are covered under those Medicaid plans. I got a feeling it's more than that. Last I heard, it was in the 230s range, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. We need to get an accurate count on that, by the way. It's always something different. And also, I remember, listen, the average non-smoker 40-year-old is going to range $319 a month. Man, that is expensive. That is so expensive. $493. Remember before Obamacare, when none of this nonsense was going on? That is so expensive. Anyway, there's something in Arkansas called the premium tax. And this is a tax that the state of Arkansas charges insurance companies who have monthly premiums that they charge their customers, if you can really even call yourself a customer. And so if the rates increase, meaning if the premiums increase, then the amount of money that the government gets, Arkansas gets in the form of a tax, goes up too. Did you know that? It's an insurance premium tax. The state of Arkansas taxes your premiums. That gets passed on to you, but it gets more money into the government coffers, more money flowing in. A lot of people don't know this. If you actually look up the law of the Arkansas insurance premium tax, it says that a tax shall be levied for doing business in the state of Arkansas. If you're going to be an insurance company and you're going to operate here, then the government taxes your premiums. And so they don't mind rate increases because it's just like with the minimum wage. Why do people really support the minimum wage? Because if your wage goes up to $15 an hour, that also means you're paying more taxes to the government. And that is what I wish the media would cover. We're giving too much money to the government as it is, right here in Arkansas. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we are a low-income state. We'll be back in just a moment. Wow. I mean, how many was it? I mean, was it 300,000? I mean, that's a lot.
I mean, there's more people killed in the Civil War than any other war in our history, or all the wars in our history combined. Yeah, we don't celebrate that fact.
Yeah.
Instead, we knock over Confederate statues. That's supposed to make us all feel good somehow.
Let's see here. Roughly 1.2 million American soldiers have died in the nation's war. 620,000 in the Civil War. 620,000. died in the Civil War. I mean, that's incredible. All to to end this this dispute. We're talking with Joe Sixpack, the author of a book. You should check it out. It's up at Amazon. Joe, can we show that Amazon page for our viewers who are watching? Socialism Sucks, Your Money from Your Pocket. I was just talking about something that I find kind of devious. And I know that socialism is appealing to young people. They've seen it maybe on a chalkboard in their Marxist college professor's classroom. And it's about freebies and free stuff. And you know, you got this college debt crisis right now that's getting people kind of enslaved to the debt system to where they're going to want more socialism because they want those debts to be wiped away. But I noticed something yesterday, and it kind of hit me. Socialism, we all know, Joe, makes societies worse off. It actually, you know, like you say, it sucks your money from your pocket. It makes people poor. It makes people less prosperous. It sucks, makes your economy not work well. But they've combined that now with climate change. And if you combine it with climate change, and they say, well, if we implement these policies, which happen to be socialistic, we can control the weather. Okay, that's what they're saying. But they're also getting young people to want to save the planet by doing without, by being more miserable, by having less conveniences in life, setting your thermostat to 80, setting your thermostat to 55 in the winter. So it's pretty sick, because the young people are going to adopt socialism and not actually think it's going to make their lives better. They're going to do it willingly so that they can pledge loyalty to the planet. It's like almost they're willing to be subjugated because they're so scared that we only have 12 years left. I mean, that dawned on me yesterday. What do you think about that?
If it wasn't so scary, it would be hilarious. They've been beating this drum since with the impending ice age from Carl Sagan back in the 70s. And then, whoops, we got it wrong. It's not an ice age. Now it's going to be global warming. Oh, well, now it's not going to be global warming. It's going to be climate change. It's going to go one way or the other. And there's always a crisis. You always have to create a crisis. So, yes, it's only 12 years. We have to spend trillions of... it's all about impoverishing people.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Tomorrow on the program, just want to remind everybody, we will be talking to State Representative Brant Smith. He's going to be giving us an update on the Arkansas School for Math and Science and Arts down in Hot Springs, that controversy there. And if you don't know about that, you can go to conduitnews.com. We have a whole write-up about it maybe a month or so ago, or two. Maybe it was at the beginning of the summer. Man, I can't believe that it's fall, by the way. Then we'll also tomorrow on the program be talking to, once again, to Gregory Wrightstone, the geologist. He's the author of Inconvenient Facts, the Science That Al Gore Doesn't Want You to Know. Now, the reason I reached out to Gregory is because of Greta Thunberg and this pedophrasty that we've been seeing. The same pedophrasty that we're seeing here in Arkansas when it comes to, trying to push a 67% vape tax. And, of course, there's news. I mean, there is the public inquiry. The government's coming down, not just here in Arkansas, but they're trying to come down nationwide. Juul has stopped all advertising. Also, their CEO has decided to step down. They're all claiming that there's kids with all of these vaping illnesses and vaping sicknesses. And yet you still have people who have been smoking combustible cigarettes that are using these products to stop smoking combustible cigarettes, and they believe that it's helped them. And so it's just very, very strange. But, if you say anything about kids, it does cause people to not be as critical and think through your argument. And that's exactly what we're seeing, what we saw earlier in the week with Greta. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are being destroyed. And you ask our generation for hope? How dare you? Yeah, it's pretty sad. Using kids to promote a power grab, socialism, and economic decline and the fact that they're claiming that, we got to make the economy worse. Really? Anyway, we've got one more hour coming your way next. Dr. Michael Packo coming up at 7:33. Don't go anywhere.
Broadcasting from the Baker Implement Studios. Baker Implement, serving you with 11 convenient locations. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM Jonesboro.
What the young people don't understand is when these clowns say, let's soak the rich, they don't understand that the real wealth in this country lies in the middle class. So they're not talking about going after the billionaires who are way smarter than these, bureaucrats and stay ahead of the curve in terms of, shielding their money. They're coming after your and my parents. That's who they're coming after. The college kids' parents, the guys in the middle, you and me. And that's the big lie. And why don't the guys on the right point that out more clearly? That's a big problem I have. And to be honest, I don't draw much distinction between a Democrat and a Republican. To me, they're politicians. It's more about them versus we, the people. But, that being said, even when the cameras are on, how come they don't make that point? How come they don't drive that point home? We're coming after your parents. We're not coming after Bill Gates. We're coming after you. Because that's the idea, is to gut the middle class. These guys are control freaks. It's all about power and control. And nobody makes that case very clearly, with the exception, I guess, of maybe Rand Paul.
Yeah. So you think, so let me just ask you this. If you shrink the middle class, if you gut the middle class, does that it makes people poorer? So you have less freedom, so people are what? They're going to be incentivized to
dependent
to look to the government to solve all their problems.
Absolutely. I mean, where do you think all this illegal immigration is coming from? It's by design. They did it in Europe, and we're only about 20 years behind them, going down the same path. Let in all the illegals, create a dependent class. I mean, that's what they did with the black community with the Civil Rights Act. That was a boondoggle. There was a brilliant guy, Democrat out of New York called Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who argued against it. LBJ, who used to refer to the Civil Rights Act as the N Act, said, I'll have those N's voting Democrat for the next 200 years in response. Well, we're just seeing the same game played over 70 years later with a new dependent class. That's the end game.
I'm really glad you mentioned the immigration crisis in Europe versus the United States.
Europe is toast.
I know, but is that a coincidence that you have all these developed nations, these first world nations, and they all can't control their borders? What are the odds of that?
Right. Yeah, it's all by design. And the funny thing is, back in the early 2000s, when I was saying this stuff over there, people thought I was just a whack job. And then, maybe 8 years on, all of a sudden you started to hear these little voices popping up saying, oh, we should control this, what's the term? Multiculturalism doesn't work. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so little simp me saw this stuff 10 years prior, said it, and I was a nutcase, and all of a sudden you're starting to get people popping up saying it after the horse has left the barn. And it just, it's mind-boggling.
You've got this Brexit situation. I mean, do you see that as a hopeful thing where at least you have England, or the people of England, not their government? The government doesn't want to leave. Well, Boris Johnson does. But do you see that as kind of a hopeful thing? Is it too late for Great Britain?
Yeah, it's too late. And it just shows you the distance in the mindset between the working class man and the elites. And the elites just, oh, you're too stupid to know what's good for you, so we're going to take care of that for you. We're not going to enact that. That's what's been going on. I mean, hell, it's been dragging its feet for the last, 8, 10 years? I mean, that's where socialism leads, right there. I think it's a perfect illustration.
So what do you think the Republican Party can do? Do you think there's some people that think the Republican Party needs to paint better narratives, that the Democrats are really good at painting narratives? I mean, say what you want. I mean, they do things that try to, prick your emotions. And that's how the Democrats get people outraged. That's how they get them thinking emotionally and not critically. I mean, but you say the Republicans need to better articulate why socialism is a terrible idea. Obviously, President Trump is doing that. He says, look at Venezuela. We don't want to be them. And I feel like stuff like that is it annoys the left, and I think it can be effective. But do you have any ideas what they should do differently?
How about everything? I mean, like I said, I don't distinguish a whole lot between Democrats and Republicans. This country was...
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. This is hour number 2. Thanks so much for starting the beginning of your day with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to talk to Dr. Michael Packow, Arkansas economist from UALR, and we got some numbers to go over. There were numbers that came out on Friday, also some new numbers that came out Tuesday morning, and so always good to talk to him. But we're going to start. I want to introduce you to the director of the Animal League of Washington County. Her name is Carmen Nelson. Carmen, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us this morning. So I myself am a animal lover. I am the proud owner of a 10-year-old German Shepherd. He is an amazing animal. And I wanted to have you on because I wanted to highlight the work that you guys are doing at the Animal League of Washington County. So what can you tell us? What's y'all's mission there?
Well, we're a nonprofit organization, and we are located in Washington County. And we have several different programs that support animals in our community, but we are here to help animals in need.
So how did you get involved in something like this?
Well, I, too, have always been an animal lover and been in this industry for about 20 years now. Started out just basically as a volunteer with a local shelter, and then I got involved with Humane Society of the Ozarks, and I was director there for several years. And then 7 years ago, we created the Animal League of Washington County when our new Washington County Animal Shelter was built. And we were kind of the fundraising arm for the shelter. And from then, it's just snowballed into a lot of different programs that we help not only animals from the shelter, but animals in the community, whether cruelty neglect investigations, medical rehab, where we'll pull animals from the shelter that need special medical care, whether they're heartworm positive or they came in injured. We'll pull those animals and we'll give them all the medical care that they need, and we put them in a foster home until they're rehabbed, and then we get them adopted.
Wow.
So that's one of our programs.
Okay, okay. So, I mean, can I ask you this? Is animal neglect and abuse? I mean, is that still a big deal? I mean, you know, it's frustrating anytime you see it, but I mean, is that a rampant problem?
It is a problem. You know, we get involved through the sheriff's department when they call us, and you know, there's backyard breeders, there's puppy mills, there's people. You know, who may just not have the education they need to know how to care for an animal. And sometimes people come in on hard times and can't afford to feed their animals. And we also rescue horses, and a lot of times the equines that we do get in our care are basically people can't afford to care for them. So neglect is an ongoing issue. You know, as thriving as Northwest Arkansas is, there still are, you know, outlining areas where people are very poor and do need assistance. So we have a pet food bank in which we help people feed their animals, you know, if they come on hard times. So, you know, we're here to help in every way that we can.
Yeah, you mentioned horses. That actually is back on September 15th. I saw this in the Gazette about the Animal League of Washington County providing rescue rehab for more animals in need. And the photo of you is actually, with a horse. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there are, there's a lot of people that maybe just assume that we're talking about, dogs and cats and things like that.
Right. So when we get horses in our care, they are in very, very poor condition. And there's a body score scale that is universal, and they usually come in at a 1 or a 2, which means you can see every rib, their hip bones protruding, just very, very poor condition. And it takes us about 4 months to put full weight on a horse. So they're in our care for quite some time. So.
Wow.
But they do turn around eventually, and then we have a trainer that we work with, and so then we get them trained to get them ready for adoption.
Now, you are the director, again, of the Animal League of Washington County, but your time is 100% volunteer, correct?
It is. It is a volunteer. We just want all the money that gets donated to the Animal League to go back 100% to the animal care. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to do my work voluntarily, and I enjoy it so much.
Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned that you guys are a nonprofit, so you guys are fueled by, donations and things like that. So do you guys have any events that are coming up pretty soon?
We sure do. So October 10th, which will be in a couple weeks, on a Thursday evening, we have our fall fundraiser. We do a fall party every year, and it's our largest fundraiser of the year to support our programs. And this year, our theme of the party is Downton Tabby. And so it'll be dinner, silent auction, live music, and a great time. So
that's great. Downton Tabby. That's good.
Yes.
I appreciate that pun there.
Yes.
Well, okay. So again, October the 10th, dinner, silent auction, live music, 7 to 10. Well, good. And then do you have another one coming up in November as well? Or
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So we have another event on November 16th, and it's not a fundraiser; it's a community outreach program. We do an event every year called Pet Wellness Expo, and that will be held at the Washington County Sheriff's Department. And we provide $5 rabies vaccines, $5 booster shots, and $10 microchips. So it's a great event for people that need to get a wellness check for their animals and get their shots. And it's expensive, for people to take their animals to the vet, and especially if they have multiple animals. So we encourage anybody, to come on out. It's open to all of Northwest Arkansas.
Well, Carmen, it's a pleasure to meet you. I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, and I appreciate, the work that you're doing with the Animal League of Washington County. I mean, I know animals, we've got a lot of animal lovers out there listening right now, and it does take people like you to, have that compassion, and it certainly is for the betterment of, Washington County in this case. And so I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, we appreciate you, and people can go to our website if they want more information, or to, want to go to our fundraiser. They can get tickets online at animalleagueofwashingtoncounty.org.
That's right, animalleagueofwashingtoncounty.org. Carmen, I hope you have a great day, and again, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate you.
Alrighty.
Have a good day.
Yes. Folks, the telephone number, 870-275-9799. If you would like to contribute to the conversation today, 870-275-9799. Let me see here. We have a lot of news to get to. Again, Dr. Michael Packo going to be on coming up here in about 20 minutes. So we always like talking about him. We were just telling you about the last hour, the insurance increases that we're going to be facing. We have, a 2%. The government insurance commissioner, Alan Kerr, here in Arkansas, has approved a 2% increase on plans. Now, it's not like he just came up with that number. The insurance companies go to the government and they say, we want to increase rates 2%. And we were just telling you that here in Arkansas, there's something called a premium tax, where there's now kind of a perverse incentive for the government to say, okay, we'll give you your rate increases, because that means we're getting more money, because now we're taxing. You've raised your premiums, and our premium tax is the same, but now we're getting more money coming into the government. And these basically almost always get approved. And so, once again, we'll be paying more for our health insurance. And so I had this comment over at our Facebook page while we're doing the live broadcast here, facebook.com/Conduit News. And somebody brings up the point. Let's see. Nathan on Facebook says, why does any government get to decide what a private company can charge? Now, I think that's a great mindset to have. Why would any government get to decide what a private company could charge? And generally, I agree with that. But in this case, it is a little different. Because here in Arkansas, we're giving massive amounts of taxpayer money. Massive amounts of taxpayer money to Blue Cross Blue Shield. We are subsidizing Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have a law on the books that guarantees Blue Cross Blue Shield in Arkansas Works get a 20% profit. So, yeah, they've pretty much forfeit. They're private in name only. Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'd say insurance companies in general, because the government is so involved in health care, they're private in name only. And let's not kid ourselves. If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders ever got their way and got full single-payer Medicare for all, we know what would happen to these executives at Blue Cross Blue Shield. They would be made happy. They would get nice jobs working for the newly formed National Health Society or National Health Bureaucracy or whatever they would call it. They would be absorbed and they would get high-paying government jobs because, it would be, the oligarchy would continue, let's say. And it really wouldn't be that much different, if you ask me, because the line between insurance companies and government is already so blurry. You really cannot tell. Case in point, right now with the headlines we have today, you really can't tell where the private company ends and the public government begins. They ask for a 2% increase from the government. It's just a formality. The government approves the 2% increase. The government also has a tax on the insurance premiums, so there's that perverse incentive, but we know the insurance company's not really going to pay because corporations don't pay taxes. People pay taxes. They just pass on the cost of the tax to the consumer. If anything, this thing is a massive inflation scheme where they're just inflating money by raising the cost and putting more money into the hands of the government. It's obviously very frustrating for me, if you can tell. I'm pretty frustrated by it. Well, and I tell you why the reason I'm frustrated is because I don't see a way for it to change. Certainly not in the short term. I've been in talk radio talking about things like this for 10 years, and for the most part, with rare exceptions, I would say the election of President Donald Trump is one of those exceptions, there's just not any wrenches thrown into their plans. The cake of big government is baked. It's baked. They've mixed it together, and it's baked, and it bakes every year, and the gatekeepers, the status quo, will let you watch it get baked. They'll let you talk about it. They'll let you complain about it to the people that voted for you. But you're not opening that oven, and you're not going to change the recipe. They will allow you, though, to turn the oven light on and kind of just, twiddle your thumbs and sit there and watch it being baked. They'll allow you to complain about it. Heck, they'll even pay and give money to your campaign so that you get reelected so you can continue to watch it and complain about it. But if you dare try to open the oven and try to actually mess with the recipe yourself, they will find a primary opponent for you and you will be thrown out of office. That's just the way it is. I mean, if you dare try to mess with the way they bake the cake in government, they'll launch bogus investigations about you and tie you to Ukraine and, say that you're a KGB agent, right? If you dare here in Arkansas, like Brian King did, continue to try and mess with the cake by filing a Medicaid disclosure bill, which would have outed all of your colleagues as being on the take in some way, they find a way to take you out. They will let you watch. They will let you complain, but they will not let you mess with their cake that is already in the oven. That's all you can do. You just watch it, complain about it, act like you're doing something. But if you actually try to go in there and do something about it, you get destroyed. Anyway, that's why it's so frustrating to me, I guess, is because I'm just like, how is it going to change? I mean, now, education's key. Somebody says, Woods says, because the majority of Arkansans are mushrooms kept in the dark and fed excrement. Jackie says this is going on. We are a poor state because the people are uneducated. That may be true as well. We have to get the information, more information to more people, and hopefully that will eventually make a difference. Thomas Jefferson did say an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic, so that's true. We just got to get more. So I know, share the program. That's what I can tell you to do. Share the program. Let people know that you're getting the truth here that you're not getting anywhere else here at Conduit News. Go to our YouTube channel, for example, and help us by subscribing to that channel so that we're able to get the message out to even more people. Click the little bell while you're there to get notifications, by the way. Please. All right, we're going to reset here. We've got to take a break. What do we have? Do we have Chinadelphia? We got Chinadelphia today. This will be fun. So let's talk about that when we come back. Let's talk about China. Remind you what the announcement was a few days ago over at Talk Business and Politics. That announcement about the China deal. Our people are still trying to do business with the Chinese. Arkansas establishment still trying to bring communist Chinese companies here in the state. We'll be back here in just a moment.
What the young people don't understand is when these clowns say, let's soak the rich, they don't understand that the real wealth in this country lies in the middle class. So they're not talking about going after the billionaires who are way smarter than these, bureaucrats and who stay ahead of the curve in terms of, shielding their money. They're coming after your and my parents. That's who they're coming after, the college kids' parents, the guys in the middle, you and me. Mm-hmm. And that's the big lie and why don't the guys on the right point that out more clearly? That's a big problem I have. And to be honest, I don't draw much distinction between a Democrat and a Republican. To me, they're politicians. It's more about them versus we, the people. But, that being said, even when the cameras are on, how come they don't make that point? How come they don't drive that point home? We're coming after your parents. We're not coming after Bill Gates. We're coming after you. Because that's the idea, is to gut the middle class. These guys are control freaks. It's all about
Bob Maloney
power,
here with a developing story from ASA News, The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, Chinadelphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parody.
So the report out the other day, so the governor, Asa Hutchinson, he's going to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, on some sort of economic development trip. Then he's going to India. Now that is the India trip is actually part, I think, of a Trump administration goal of maybe trying to do some business there or something, or encourage that relationship, because India's not trying to take over the world like China is. But, anyway. The announcement also comes as the governor's Department of Environmental Quality, Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality, has now approved a air permit to begin construction on the China-Delphia plant, the $1 billion investment. Again, I will be surprised if if this ever actually happens. I really there are people who are very uncomfortable with the idea that Arkansas has not one, not two, but six deals on hold because of the president's good and right trade war with China. Those are on hold now. And the question is why China. People are starting to ask that question. More and more people are starting to ask that question. Why would you do business with them? It's one thing to trade with them, but why would you bring them into our country? Why would you give them Arkansas taxpayer incentives in dollars? Why would you let them use our resources and send the profits back home? These are not companies. The governor's quoted as saying that these are investors like anybody else. They're not investors like anybody else. They are loyal to the Communist Party of China. I will reference you our interview 2 days ago with Brigadier General Spalding, who's from the Hudson Institute, who does extensive research on the China-U.S. relationship. I asked him about Hong Kong, and he said, really, you want to know the real reason why Hong Kong is so scared of China? Because if you are extradited to the mainland, dissidents are put in machines that keep you alive and allow you to harvest their organs. China, according to General Spalding, has created an entire industry where elites around the world are able to schedule heart transplants. We talked about this. There's a YouTube video up right now from earlier this week, me and General Spalding. Go listen to the interview. It is shocking because you're not hearing that story anywhere. You're not hearing that elites around the world are able to schedule their heart transplants, which is something you can't do, right? But you can if China has basically got these machines that keep people alive so they can slowly harvest their organs. It is something out of a dystopian novel. It's something out of the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. It's disgusting. Why would we do business? It's one thing to trade, but why in the world would you want to bring companies like this in that represent a party that's allowing that kind of barbarity to go on? And the people in Hong Kong are over there waving the American flag because it still means freedom and it still means hope. And they're hoping that, that the world knows that what China is attempting to do to the remaining freedoms that the Hong Kong people have. Why China? Oh, and by the way, I want to remind you, anytime the Chinese government goes into a country, whether it's Mozambique, whether it's Zimbabwe, the first thing they do is they grease the politicians. And in light of the fact that all of our politicians are going to jail, I think they would find, some success here.
And nobody makes that case very clearly, with the exception, I guess, of maybe Rand Paul.
Yeah. So you think, so let me just ask you this. If you shrink the middle class, if you gut the middle class, does that it makes people poorer? So you have less freedom, so people are what? They're going to be incentivized to
dependent
to look to the government to solve all their problems.
Absolutely. I mean, where do you think all this illegal immigration is coming from? It's by design. They did it in Europe, and we're only about 20 years behind them. Going down the same path. Let in all the illegals, create a dependent class. I mean, that's what they did with the black community with the Civil Rights Act. That was a boondoggle. There was a brilliant guy, Democrat out of New York called Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who argued against it. LBJ, who used to refer to the Civil Rights Act as the N Act, said, I'll have this end voting Democrat for the next 200 years in response. Well, we're just seeing the same game played over 70 years later, with a new dependent class. That's the end game.
I'm really glad you mentioned the immigration crisis in Europe versus the United States.
Europe is toast.
I know, but is that a coincidence that you have all these developed nations, these first world nations, and they all can't control their borders? What are the odds of that?
Right. Yeah, it's all by design. And the funny thing is, back in the early 2000s, when I was saying this stuff over there, people thought I was just a whack job. And then, maybe 8 years on, all of a sudden you started to hear these little voices popping up saying, oh, we should control this, what's the term? Multiculturalism doesn't work. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so little simp me saw this stuff 10 years prior, said it, and I was a nutcase. Now all of a sudden you're starting to get people popping up saying it after the horse has left the barn. And it just, it's mind-boggling.
You've got this Brexit situation. I mean, do you see that as a hopeful thing where at least you have England, or the people of England, not their government? The government doesn't want to leave. Well, Boris Johnson does. But do you see that as kind of a hopeful thing? Is it too late for Great Britain?
Yeah, it's too late, and it just shows you the distance in the mindset between the working class man and the elites. And the elites just, oh, you're too stupid to know what's good for you, so we're going to take care of that for you. We're not going to enact that. That's what's been going on. I mean, hell, it's been dragging its feet for the last 8, 10 years. I mean, that's where socialism leads, right there. I think it's a perfect.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, hey, welcome back to the program. You know who I can't help this, but Joe, you know who who's being lost in all of this, in all of the Ukraine scandal and everything else. You know who's being lost in all of this? London Alexis Roberts. She's from Independence County. London Alexis Roberts is from Independence County, and she claims that she has the illegitimate child of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. Which, I mean, listen, we've got to believe the woman, right? Because you believe every woman. So this is from the Gazette back in July. The plaintiff, London, spelled L-U-N-D-N. I just feel like you need to, that to me seems that it makes this, I think the spelling of the name is relevant. London Alexis Roberts, 28, maintains that she and Hunter Biden were in a relationship. The baby was born as a result of that relationship, and it blah, 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 blah. It just is what it is. And Hunter Biden and I think Dustin McDaniel is the one in charge of the former AG, Dustin McDaniel. I got to know Hunter Biden when he was at AG and at Delaware, wherever he was AG at. And so he's handling this case. But I think that's interesting here because if Hunter Biden, who was making $600,000 a year, if he goes to jail, I mean, what's going to happen with London Alexis Roberts in this paternity case? By the way, I also want to remind you that Giuliani the other day on Fox News said that Hunter Biden was also a drug addict. So that's interesting here. Folks, I had the privilege. Let's go ahead and roll this. The other day I sat down with Dr. Michael Packo, and we talked Arkansas economic numbers. This is what it sounded like. All right, folks, hey, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us as always. We got a special treat this morning. It's always great to have Dr. Michael Packo join us. Of course, he's a chief economist and state economic forecaster at the Arkansas Economic Development Institute at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock at UALR. Dr. Packo, how are you this morning?
Doing just fine. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. So how have things been going? I saw that on Friday we had some jobless numbers, or the unemployment rate was released. What can you tell us about those numbers?
Well, the last Friday we had the new numbers for August. The unemployment rate remains usually low, record low at 3.7%. We had another month of pretty solid non-farm payroll employment growth, so there wasn't really anything to be too concerned about relative to recent trends. The latest data suggests that we're still growing jobs at about 1.2% annual rate, which is about the trend we've been following for the past 4 or 5 years. And so I guess one of the encouraging numbers in that report was a rebound in manufacturing employment, which had been on the downtrend for 2 or 3 months this summer. So it was good to see that bouncing back. And really no terribly evident signs of weakness in the employment report.
Yeah, and I think this is something that is making a lot of folks happy. Then you've got the stock market, which is doing good too. What are your thoughts on? Really, let me just ask you this generally. It seems people on the left want the economy to tank, so it decreases the likelihood that President Trump gets reelected. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's certainly those kind of prognostications do get all wrapped up in politics. There's certainly some evidence that the global economy is weakening, and some concerning signs in financial markets. We have this inverted yield curve periodically, where the short-term interest rates are rising above long-term rates. But as far as looking for signs of kind of overkill or potential bubbles that might bring on an economic collapse of some sort or another, there's not really anything out there on the horizon that seems obvious to me. So it would just seem that this particular expansion we've been going for as a nation 10 years now, longest expansion on record, but there haven't really been those excesses that you often see when an economy's expansion gets to a mature phase where it seems unsustainable any longer. This has just been a long, slow slog. And for that matter, it hasn't really been evenly distributed. There are parts of the country that are doing quite well and other parts of the country that aren't doing so well.
Now, so we have these job numbers that came out on Friday. There were some new ones that came out on Tuesday. Is that right?
Yes, we got the new personal income numbers for the second quarter of the year. There's a little bit of a lag on that. But this is another good report. We had a 5% annual growth rate in the second quarter in total personal income of Arkansans, and that was up from a weak first quarter. We saw only about 2% growth. So the personal income has been up a little bit, growing a little bit more slowly than the rest of the nation. It's a 5.4% rate for the U.S. So, but we were right about the right about at the median when you look at the comparison of states' growth rates for the second quarter. And personal income is an important number, I think, because it really encapsulates a lot of economic activity in one big aggregate. It's probably the closest you come to GDP for a state level in any timely manner. So it's a good indication that at least the second quarter, things were still plugging along good for people's incomes here in Arkansas.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic thing. Again, we're talking with Dr. Michael Packo. He is an economist, and he knows what he's talking about. Knows a lot more than I do about the economy. Dr. Packo, I would wonder, what do you think? What could be done, in your opinion, that would give Arkansas an even better chance at being more successful than we are now?
Oh, well, there certainly are some weak areas in the Arkansas economy. If you look around the state, really there are certain areas that are doing really well. Northwest Arkansas, obviously, is booming. Central Arkansas, Jonesboro is doing great. But if you look around the state, there are really about 2/3 of the counties in Arkansas have been losing population during this decade. And I think that largely attributable to the transformation we've had from a manufacturing economy to a more service-oriented economy. So a lot of the small factory jobs that we saw around the state simply are disappearing and are likely not to come back. And the service sector is more active in the metropolitan areas. So we're seeing kind of a hollowing out of the rural areas in the state. And it seems to me that we should be encouraging local growth of businesses, entrepreneurship, as really that turns out to be the driver of job growth rather than trying to lure in the big corporations that are going to promise hundreds of jobs for a small community. It's more likely that we're going to see organic, local job growth. That's really where things happen. So I would put more emphasis on that kind of policy to the extent that there's anything that you can do to make the economy grow more efficiently.
I've studied. Are you familiar with the idea of opportunity zones? I mean, I've heard about this before. I've never really decided what I think about it. What do you think about opportunity zones?
Well, I guess in principle, it's a good idea that you offer incentives to invest in places where there's a lack of investment. All too often, though, politics gets involved in the location and selection of the site. And with any sort of subsidy, what often happens is that the transfers go to the people who would have done that anyway, as this kind of subsidizes activity that would have taken place. It's not clear how much it really changes the incentives and changes the outcomes as much as some might think.
Yeah, and especially you mentioned the recruiting big businesses, already established businesses. I was kind of referring to I've heard people before to encourage let's say in the rural areas somebody starting a business from the ground up that then you put in this opportunities zone. But you're saying that it may not be necessarily crystal clear that it would have any impact at all.
Well. It's not clear how much it improves activity, put it that way. I guess what I had in mind more was the idea that when firms make their location decisions, they often settle on a region and then narrow it down. And that's part of the game where trying to get incentive subsidies.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like back to your initial point about locally grown businesses, organically grown businesses. If I can recruit a big business here into Arkansas, then it could potentially be recruited away. But I mean, the statistics are pretty clear. When you have low taxes, low regs, and you make it possible for, or at least easier for somebody to say, you know what, I've been doing this for a while. I've always had this idea. I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to try to start this business. If it's successful, that business is going to stick around in Arkansas, right?
Right. That's generally the case. And really, when you dig down in the statistics, that's where most of the job growth comes from. Now a lot of it, as you point out, is temporary in the sense that not all new businesses succeed. So there's a lot of turnover, but both in terms of gross and net job growth, small business is really where it's at.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it is the backbone. Well, yeah, I mean, I think a lot. I hear that a lot though about the fact that we do have, Little Rock, like you said, it's booming. Northwest Arkansas is doing good. Northeast Arkansas, but then we have this kind of depopulation of some of the rest of our state, and it's concerning to me. I mean, I definitely think that this is something that we all need to be concerned about to some degree or another.
Well, yeah. It's I mean, this economic expansion has really been a transformation in Arkansas's labor markets, and that's had an effect on population flows and growth around the state as well. Now we have seen more growth in leisure and hospitality tourism industries. Those tend to help some of the more rural areas that have amenities to offer. But there's just the loss of manufacturing and goods producing jobs in many parts of the state is just have not been replaced.
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, hopefully, hopefully we'll continue to make progress. Like you said, we've got good jobs numbers, good income numbers as well from Tuesday. So anyway, it's always great to have you on, Dr. Michael Packo, to analyze all this for us and to kind of report, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I hope I didn't get too far down in the weeds with you.
You never can do that.
It's a pleasure to talk with you.
No, absolutely. We really appreciate it, Dr. Packo.
And then, maybe 8 years on, all of a sudden you started to hear these little voices popping up saying, oh, we should control this, what's the term, multiculturalism doesn't work. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so little simp me saw this stuff 10 years prior, said it, and I was a nutcase, and all of a sudden you're starting to get people popping up saying it after the horse has left the barn. And it just, it's mind-boggling.
You've got this Brexit situation. I mean, do you see that as a hopeful thing where at least you have England, or the people of England, not their government? The government doesn't want to leave. Well, Boris Johnson does. But do you see that as kind of a hopeful thing? Is it too late for Great Britain?
Yeah, it's too late, and it just shows you the distance in the mindset between the working class man and the elites. And the elites just, oh, you're too stupid to know what's good for you, so we're going to take care of that for you. We're not going to enact that. That's what's been going on. I mean, hell, it's been dragging its feet for the last 8, 10 years. I mean, that's where socialism leads, right there. I think it's a perfect illustration.
So what do you think the Republican Party can do? Do you think there's some people that think the Republican Party needs to paint better narratives, that the Democrats are really good at painting narratives? I mean, say what you want. I mean, they do things that try to, prick your emotions. And that's how the Democrats get people outraged. That's how they get them thinking emotionally and not critically. I mean, but you say the Republicans need to better articulate why socialism is a terrible idea. Obviously, President Trump is doing that. He says, look at Venezuela. We don't want to be them. And I feel like stuff like that it annoys the left, and I think it can be effective. But do you have any ideas what they should do differently?
How about everything? I mean, like I said, I don't distinguish a whole lot between Democrats and Republicans. This country was founded by businessmen. And over the years, it's morphed to where you have these people going to Ivy League colleges, getting law degrees, and going up there. We're full of lawyers who go up there for a career and to get extremely wealthy. That's the swamp that Trump got elected against. And I think more people need to focus less on Democrats and Republicans and more on the government versus we the people. And the Constitution was written to protect the individual from the government. And why does the left bang on that issue? Why don't they hammer that into people's heads? Because that's what it's all about. And, you want to talk about Republicans, quote unquote, they need to appeal to young people, and they do an extremely poor job. And to me, it's as simple as,
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
870-275-9799. The family of a former University of Arkansas Fort Smith student, they are still very upset with the basketball coach there. They think that he was racist and discriminatory, or they think he has a policy on hair that disproportionately affects people of color. And of course, the University of Arkansas Fort Smith, they launched an investigation, and they determined, I think they determined that the coach maybe that he wasn't racist, but maybe the policy needs to be different and that sort of thing, because this all had to do with dreadlocks. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Joe's in the other room. Dreads. That's what it had to do with. In the posted letter, Talk Business and Politics reports that Williams and his parents said Boone, who was hired as the coach, told Williams he did not like hair like his, and he would not recruit players who had hair like his. Now, did he really say it like that, or is he just specifically referring to dreadlocks or long hair? In his 2018-29 roster photo, Williams sports chin-length dreadlocks that are pulled back from his face. The Post noted that because he was a senior, Williams would not be required to change his hair. In the letter, Williams' parents stated the whole hair issue was racist because it's Williams' natural hair. Quote, Boone is attempting to enforce grooming policies that disproportionately affect people of color, particularly black people, the letter noted. So I think there's people, they want an apology of some kind. The university conducted some sort of study, a student basketball player who alleged racism discrimination. They don't think the university has handled this. Back on September 11th, the university released a statement that the university's Equal Employment Opportunity Officer did not find substantial evidence of race discrimination. What do you think? Do you think it's discriminatory? I mean, I thought coaches could dictate what their players looked like in terms of dress as well as haircut, kind of like the Army. You know what I mean? Kind of like the Armed Services, where the Armed Services tells you what kind of hair you're going to have. And it's most of the time none, right? Or very little, or very short. And so the basketball coach saying, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what his state of mind is or what his motivation was. But the basketball coach saying, hey, listen, I don't like hair like yours. That doesn't necessarily that doesn't necessarily mean, or I don't want to recruit players that have dreadlocks. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's because you're black. I mean, you know what I mean? By the way, there are people of all races that can put dreadlocks in their hair. So, anyway, what do you think? You think it's racist or what? Again, I thought it used to be a thing where coaches were like, if you're gonna play for me, you're gonna do this on your school grades. You're gonna dress like this on game day. You're gonna wear a tie. You're not. We don't want any long hair. I thought that was a thing, but apparently, I guess it's not a thing anymore. Let me know what you think about that. 870-275-9799. You can also sound off on Facebook. Let's see. What do we have on Facebook right now? No, nobody's really sounding off on this one yet. But tomorrow on the program, we will be talking with State Representative Brant Smith. I'm excited about that. State Representative Brant Smith will be on the program. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Arkansas School for Math, Science, and the Arts and that scandal, maybe get an update on it. Also, Brant Smith has an interesting story. The way I understand it, State Representative Brant Smith is actually friends with and served in Iraq with one of the guys who's challenging one of the squad. Is it out of Minnesota? Is it Talib or Omar? One of them. Anyway, so that's interesting. I would talk to him about that as well. So that's an interesting Arkansas twist, if you will. And we also will be talking with Gregory Wrightstone about Greta Thunberg. Gregory's been on the program a bunch, and he is the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. By the way, they have an app that I have on my phone, and it's fantastic. Inconvenient Facts. It's an app you can get in your store, in your app store. And it's designed to be, if you're ever in a debate with somebody that's talking climate change, you just pull your phone out, open the app, and just go. It's just going to give you actual inconvenient facts to the climate change alarmists and Gaia worshipers. Something to think about there. We're going to get to your meme of the day here in just a moment, but this article did come across my computer screen, which I thought was interesting. It's being circulated right now among conservatives, trying to wake up those on the left who believe what the media is telling them when it comes to the Ukraine and Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine, and totally ignoring what Joe Biden actually did, trying to project it on to President Trump. By the way, we talked all about this in the first segment of the first hour, so you can check that out. We basically did a comprehensive report and coverage about what just took place over the last 24 hours. But this is one thing we missed. Did you know that there is a treaty between the United States of America and the Ukraine regarding cooperation in the prosecution of crimes? It was passed when Joe Biden was a member of the U.S. Senate. It was signed by then President Bill Clinton. It is a comprehensive treaty agreement that allows cooperation between both the United States and Ukraine in the investigation and prosecution of crimes. It appears President Trump was following the law to the letter when it comes to unearthing the long-standing corruption that is swirled in Ukraine and was exacerbated by an American vice president. And it's right here, a treaty between the United States of America and Ukraine on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters with annex signed at Kiev on July 22nd, 1998. This is pretty fascinating stuff when you think about it, that this is now coming out as well. A lot of people out there doing research. But you know what? Even if this document even if there wasn't a treaty, he still did nothing wrong. This is just something to kind of, bolster things. And the media is continuing to blatantly lie. I can't stress that enough. They're saying that the president asked for a favor, and that favor was investigating Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. No, they are omitting 540 words from the transcript. He asks for a favor that they would look into CrowdStrike, the people the DNC used to investigate why they were hacked, and the 2016 election hacking of the Democrat Party. That's what he asked for. That was the favor. And they're lying to you. But it's because the media, they're corrupt. They are. The president's right. He said it yesterday. They're corrupt. And look what they've done. And look what they're doing. They're brainwashing people. Here's your meme of the day. Joe, let's see. Do we have it? Courtesy of Old Glory on Instagram. And this is very fitting. It's a photo of Adam Schiff, little Adam Schiff. And it says, "We now have reason to believe Trump ripped the tag off his mattress in 1987. We will post this up at our Twitter feed, which is at Conduit News. And also, please be sure, if you're going to go to our Twitter page, you might as well go to the YouTube page while you're there and you have the internet connection. Search for Conduit News on YouTube and subscribe to us and click the little bell to receive notifications. Tomorrow's Johnny Cash Friday. We really appreciate it. Special thanks to Carmen Nelson for coming on, Dr. Michael Pacco. All of this is available at that YouTube channel here in just a little bit in separate clips. Folks, Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.